Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are talking about how people are freaking out about this Ocarina of Time remake leak, apparently. So what has been going on is that many people now, online, believe we have the release date for The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for Nintendo Switch 2. We may know when this remake is actually going to be coming out. Now, when is it coming out? Supposedly November, as a lot of us have been thinking for some time, but the timing of it is very particular, and it's certainly leading to a great deal of conversations in terms of how confident Nintendo is about this game, and how it's going to compare to another huge release that's coming out in November. And so we're going to be diving into why people believe this is when the game is coming out, and the implications of Nintendo choosing this particular date, which in my opinion are suggestive of a game that Nintendo is extremely confident in, which is hype-worthy. And so that's what we're diving into today. Now, before going forward, let me point out I have this goal to reach 60,000 subscribers. I'm getting so close. I'm hoping to hit the goal soon. So if you find yourself enjoying my videos and you haven't subscribed already, I would very much appreciate you subscribing. So basically, the reason people think Ocarina of Time is going to be coming out on November, and specifically November 12th, is because of an Amiibo leak that fits in with an Amiibo theory that has shown to have a pretty solid correlation to when Nintendo games come out, Nintendo published titles. As you see here, this was tweeted by Necrofelipe yesterday, Nintendo's European store lists the Sword, Kirby, and Dragoon Amiibo for November 12th. That date falls on a Thursday. This Amiibo reminds of a Link, and well, you know, they are theorizing it could be the date for Zelda Ocarina of Time, 1 week before Grand Theft Auto 6. Would be funny. So when you actually go and check, at least for me, when I check, it's no longer there, so it seems like they're actually hiding these Amiibo listings. And it's not just for the Kirby Dragoon Amiibo, it's also for the Hydra King Dedede Amiibo from Kirby Air Riders. Both these Kirby Air Rider Amiibos apparently leaked to be coming out November 12th, but when you go and check, it's no longer showing. And so this is interesting because people believe this is suggestive that a big Nintendo title is coming out November 12th. Now, you might think this is weird because you're looking at Kirby Amiibo and you're thinking, okay, sure, maybe the dates for these Kirby Amiibos were leaked for November 12th and they didn't want that to be public information yet, but how does that have to do with The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time? Well, the thing is, there is this theory, and we've seen Nintendo do it actually quite a few times already, that when a Nintendo game is coming out, they will also have Amiibo come out during that time if they have an Amiibo that's ready to come out. Now, looking at this list of Amiibos here, some of the recently released Amiibos, like you see the Splatoon Raiders Amiibo, they came out July 23rd, which is the release date for Splatoon Raiders. That makes sense. It's Amiibo for that particular game. But then also you look over here, this King Dedede and Tank Star Amiibo, another Kirby Air Rider Amiibo, came out July 2nd, which is actually the release date for Rhythm Heaven Groove. And we've seen other examples like this. For example, we scroll down a bit, there is a Meta Knight Amiibo that came out on March 5th. That's when Pokopia came out. And so the point here is that we are seeing some Amiibo come out when Nintendo is releasing a game. And it doesn't have to be a game that's directly related to this Amiibo. It could just be a different Nintendo series. Now, you might wonder why Nintendo does this, and I think the reasoning is actually fairly simple. When a Nintendo game comes out, what's going to happen? People are going to actually go to the stores where there are Amiibos being sold, and so if there are some new Amiibo, there are Nintendo fans there. Even if they went to the store for a different Nintendo series, they are still a Nintendo fan, and thus have a higher chance of being interested in those Amiibo that also just came out. I think it's literally that simple. And so, if there are a pair of Amiibos coming out November 12th, there does appear to be a bit of a correlation with Amiibo release dates and actual big Nintendo game releases. It's not always the case though. Like, for example, I don't know of any Amiibo that came out when Star Fox came out. And you look at these Mario Amiibos here for the Mario Galaxy movie, they came out April 2nd. There was no games that came out on April 2nd from Nintendo. So, I think we should also temper expectations here and consider that just because these Amiibo may be coming out November 12th, that does not mean there is a game that has to come out November 12th, but it does seem to strengthen the belief that a game could come out November 12th. And so, taking a look at the calendar here, We already have Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave coming out in September, on the 17th to be specific, and then Nintendo Switch Sports Resort is coming out on October 22nd. Keep in mind, Nintendo games come out on Thursday nowadays, so when looking at November, they likely will have a game come out in November, because they always have a game come out in November, at least one, usually more actually. So there's got to be a game release. And when you take a look at the month, there are just 4 Thursdays in the month of November, the last one being the 4th Thursday, that's Thanksgiving. Nintendo will not be releasing a game on Thanksgiving, the day before Black Friday. It would be in one of the other 3 weeks of the month, one of the first 3 Thursdays. However, the other thing is that Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming out in this 3rd week of November, and that is a very big deal. People think that pretty much the entire industry, or most of the industry, is going to try and steer clear of this. So when people see that Nintendo has Amiibos coming out November 12th with this correlation in mind, that Nintendo releases their games at the same time as Amiibos, then this seems like a strong date for a big game release. And when you also consider that we only have 4 more games slated for this year, Fire Emblem, Switch Sports, the Duskbloods, and the Ocarina of Time Remake, there's only 2 other known games that could fit during this period of time. But when you also consider that the Duskbloods, we're not even sure if it's coming out this year right now, because in the recent Nintendo Direct, they did not reiterate a 2026 release date, which leaves some people concerned. And also, the history of major Zelda releases when they're coming out around the holidays to be a November release, I do think we should be thinking that the Ocarina of Time Remake is probably Nintendo's big release for November. But is it coming out specifically on November 12th? I personally think it could still happen on the 5th or the 19th, but the 12th definitely seems like a likely candidate. If we have these Amiibo coming out then, I can understand why this would be the prediction of many. And yeah, I would say, as things currently appear, this does appear to be the most likely date for the Ocarina of Time release. But if this is indeed what is happening, that then has people wondering about how this is going to impact Ocarina of Time, because it will be coming out so close to Grand Theft Auto, which a lot of people think is going to overshadow so many other things. I think it's actually suggestive of something else. It's suggestive of Nintendo marching to the beat of their own drum, them not being afraid of other games even if they are going to be really successful, and that they're also extremely confident in Ocarina of Time being their biggest, most exciting release of the year, and that it will still be extremely successful. And so I want to dive a little bit more into that, but before doing so, here's a brief message about today's sponsor. Have you ever used a quiet eye massager? Perhaps you haven't. At first, I was unsure about this. I was like, what is this going to do to my eyes? What does it mean to massage your eyes? But I tried out this quiet eye massager from Relief RX, and I will tell you, it was relieving. It felt good. You put it on your head, it massages around your eyes, and it's a pleasant experience. It plays calm, tranquil music. It warms up the muscles around your eyes, it moves things around, and when you take it off, you feel refreshed, it feels cool. It's quite comfortable, so I recommend checking it out with the link in the description below. So firstly, the idea that Nintendo would not put out at least one big game, if not more by the way, because they usually put out more during this period of time, because of a single game release, regardless of whatever release that is, to me, I find laughable. Nintendo is a business. They're not going to just give up on literally the most important sales period of the year for one other game. That's not how this works. They've never done that, and I don't think it's going to start now just because Grand Theft Auto is probably going to do really well, which I agree, it is probably going to do really well. Grand Theft Auto is extremely popular. There's been a lot of anticipation for this game. There's a lot going into this game, and people believe it's going to be fantastic. I'm sure it will be. And it's going to come out for almost every single major platform. So, of course, it's going to sell extremely well. It's one of the most popular series in the world. Of course. But regardless, that doesn't mean other companies should just not be successful during the most important sales period of the year. There are games coming out every day. There are multiple games coming out every day for every single platform. So just because one big game is coming out, it doesn't mean there won't be more. We see big games come out at the same time, the same day, all the time. But here's another thing to consider. Grand Theft Auto 6 is not coming up for Nintendo Switch 2. At least not yet. It has not been announced yet, and given how late we are into the year, it's very, very likely that if it is coming, which I do think there's a good chance it will be coming, it's not coming out this year. It's not coming out in November alongside the other versions. And so that's another reason to think why Nintendo shouldn't really care that much about Grand Theft Auto, because they still need to have a game to play on their new console, and they also need to give people reason to buy the console during this sales period. So yes, they do need to put out a big game in November, as they usually do, and from what we've been hearing about the Zelda 40th anniversary leaks, how there's supposed to be a Zelda-themed Switch 2 console, and also a Zelda-themed Pro Controller, and we've seen the 40th anniversary logo, or at least an approximation of it. It's suggestive that Nintendo is going to be announcing and celebrating Zelda's 40th anniversary, perhaps in the biggest way yet. A lot of these things will be coming out during the holidays, likely alongside the release for Ocarina of Time. There's going to be a big push there. There's going to be a lot of marketing there. We know about the live-action Zelda movie. That's going to be increasing in Zelda hype. So there's going to be a lot of Zelda excitement, a lot of Zelda hype, a lot of Zelda buzz, and people are going to be buying Zelda things, Zelda Amiibos, buying tickets for concerts, merchandising, games, including, actually most importantly, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for Nintendo Switch 2, which may be coming out on November 12th, a week before Grand Theft Auto, but I'm not ruling out the possibility it comes out literally in the same week. Some people think that Nintendo would be foolish to do something like this, but Nintendo historically has not been afraid of other companies. They do as they please, they operate as they can. They operate in the way they think makes the most sense for them. I understand that with the Wii era, Nintendo entered the blue ocean strategy and they just sort of started focusing on doing their own thing as opposed to directly competing. Which, by the way, would also mean that they would see themselves as separate from the other companies and at least make some decisions where they don't feel the other companies would be having as much of an impact. But even if you choose to see things in a different way, the brand recognition, the strength of Nintendo now as compared to before, Nintendo is the strongest they ever have been. And they're going to be coming out with what appears to be, quite obviously, the most ambitious reworking Nintendo has ever done. And I use the wording reworking for a reason, because we're not entirely sure what this is yet. We know it's ambitious, we know it's a big deal, but we don't know what level of remake it is. We've seen Nintendo use a lot of this wording of reborn in various forms of the marketing so far. It's been in the metadata for the website, referring to it as a full remake, which Nintendo never does. They never refer to their games as a full remake. They did that and then took down that information, but they're also referring to this game as being reborn on the website. They referred to it as being reborn on Twitter. They referred to it as being reborn in the Nintendo Direct when they announced the title. And there's even like this recent magazine where they were referring to the game as being reborn across time. And I've talked about this various times. I know there are still people out there saying, oh, this doesn't mean anything, because Nintendo one time on a single tweet said Skyward Sword is being reborn for Switch 1. That's a single social media post, which is likely not a big decision made by a grand team. That was just one person who had an idea for a cool tweet to promote the game. This messaging, because we're seeing it so consistently in various forms, is actually very suggestive of how Nintendo internally wants this game to be understood as. Nintendo has not taken the time to clarify and lower or temper expectations about this game, which Nintendo tends to do with a lot of things. Like with when they revealed Star Fox, they quickly told us before they showed gameplay that it is a remake of Star Fox 64, at least in terms of the campaign. They have not done that for Ocarina of Time. And simply taking a look at the teaser trailer, I think it's highly evident that there are massive reworkings here, massive redesigns, structural changes when you take a look at the bit of footage to Link's room and such, and just how he's being designed in the Deku Tree. And then you also consider what they're doing with the music and the voice acting. My point being here is that this is looking fairly ambitious. This is coming out clearly in the holiday period. Even if we're somehow off about it being November, it's clearly Nintendo's big holiday release. It's clearly going to be the centerpiece for Zelda's 40th anniversary. It's clearly going to be Nintendo's best-selling game of the year. This is going to be a big deal. This is probably Nintendo's most ambitious reworking for their most critically acclaimed game ever made. And people to this day still argue it's the greatest game of all time. So it's an extremely important release that Nintendo's going to be treating with extreme care. And so the very fact that they are positioning this for the holidays to celebrate the Zelda's 40th anniversary and probably not caring that much about the presence of Grand Theft Auto should be just even more suggestive of Nintendo's confidence in this release, in how big of a deal it's going to be for Nintendo Switch 2 owners. They want people to pick up a Switch 2 for this game. Nintendo is so confident about this, they've barely shown anything yet, but I imagine soon they will. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.